Minecraft used to look completely different, and with every update, it's transformed in ways most players don't even realize. I'll be breaking down how Minecraft evolved from its earliest days to the massive, feature-packed world we know now. Pre-Classic. Pre-Classic was the very initial version of Minecraft long before Notch decided to sell it to Mojang. At this point, Minecraft was hardly even a game, and more of just a very bare-bones prototype. There was only a couple of blocks grass and cobblestone with very early textures. No enemies or health bars. You could break blocks and place them, so it did have some of the Minecraft feel, and there still was the signature void and the ability to respawn. During this time, the game also went through numerous name changes, starting with Cave Game only ending on Minecraft. Classic Minecraft is still a very early version, but it's where Minecraft started to actually feel like Minecraft. The game still had no hunger, no mobs, and no real goal, but it introduced a lot of the core building mechanics that defined what Minecraft would become. You could now place and remove more block types, switch between them in your inventory, and even invite friends to build with you in early multiplayer mode, which, for the time, was mind-blowing. The game was still admittedly lacking, but the creative vision began here. Indev, short for In Development, is where Minecraft really started turning into a survival game. Crafting got added, which, let's be honest, is the mechanic that made Minecraft Minecraft. You could finally make tools, weapons, and blocks instead of just having them all handed to you. This version also introduced finite worlds, so instead of infinite terrain, you spawned in this boxed-in little area surrounded by nothingness. It felt kind of claustrophobic. Lighting got added too, so caves weren't just voids of darkness anymore, and lava started showing up, which, naturally, most players immediately fell into. Indev was messy, weird, and honestly a little broken at times, but it was the beginning of what we now call the Minecraft experience. You know, mining, crafting, and then immediately losing everything to a creeper explosion 5 minutes later. Now we're entering Infdev, short for Infinite Development, which sounds way cooler than it actually was. This is when Minecraft finally went infinite. No more borders, no more boxed-in worlds, just endless terrain, and maybe the occasional getting lost for the 5th time today. This version introduced real terrain generation, caves, and saving your worlds properly. Finally, you could build something and not have it vanish the next time you logged in. Revolutionary stuff. Of course, it was still a mess, lighting bugs everywhere, water that acted possessed, and terrain that looked like it was generated by a drunk algorithm. But it gave Minecraft its soul. Exploration, chaos, and cliffs designed specifically to make you fall to your death. Oh, and if you're interested in something other than falling to your death in Minecraft, perhaps you would consider joining my new Discord server. Come and hang out with other fans of the channel and get sneak peeks into the upcoming SMP, which is launching soon. The link will be in the description below. Now back to the video. Alpha is where Minecraft really started taking shape as a survival game. You actually had to pay attention now since things could hurt you. Health was added, hostile mobs were active at night, and the game expected you to gather resources, build shelter, and try not to get jumped by a skeleton with aimbot-level accuracy. This is also when biomes were introduced, so the world stopped looking like one endless grass field. You'd find forests, deserts, snow areas, each with a different look. The world finally felt varied and explorable instead of just green everywhere. The Nether also arrived here. There was lava everywhere, strange new blocks, and ghasts screaming in the distance. It added danger, travel shortcuts, and a sense that the Minecraft world was bigger than it appeared. And while villagers were not fully functional yet, the early concepts of generated structures and world features were starting to form. Seeds mattered, exploration mattered, and the game had a real loop now. Gather, survive, expand. Lose everything to a creeper, do it again. Beta also added a bunch of new content actually transforming the game. A ton of core features players now take for granted came from this era. Weather was added, so instead of every day being a perfect summer afternoon, you got rain, snow, and thunderstorms. Beds also showed up here, which was huge. Before this, if you died, you spawned all the way back at the original world start, so beds basically saved players from having to hike across the entire planet every time a creeper tapped them on the shoulder. We also got wolves in this update, which, is easily one of the best decisions Notch ever made. But the real turning point of the beta update was when hunger was added along with sprint. Suddenly, everything felt so smooth and balanced. Also, villages, strongholds, and abandoned mine shafts appeared. This is the era where players began capturing villagers for trading. Look, I'm not saying I have a villager basement, I'm just saying if one of them tries to raise the price on an emerald trade, accidents can happen. Beta made Minecraft feel alive. The world had structure, exploration had purpose, and the game started forming its identity as something people could play for years. Release Minecraft, also known as version 1.0, is where Minecraft officially stepped out of beta and became a full release title. This update introduced the End and the Ender Dragon, which gave the game something it never really had before, an actual final boss. Before this, beating Minecraft meant you just stopped playing because you got bored or your house burned down. Now there was a real end goal, even if most players still got distracted building 16 different starter bases and never got around to it. Enchanting and potions were also added around this time. Villages became more common too, and villagers were starting to act like small passive creatures with just enough personality to annoy you. Trades existed, but the deals were pretty questionable. If you wanted to experience what true disappointment feels like, you talked to a villager in Release 1.0. Release 1.0 was a huge moment. Minecraft gained structure, progression, and an ending that tied the experience together. The world felt complete, even though development was nowhere near done. Players had a reason to explore, to gear up, and to take on the big purple sky lizard in the end. Version 1.1 wasn't a huge content update, but it did tighten up the game and add a couple features that ended up being pretty important. The biggest one was spawn eggs, which made creative mode a lot easier to work with. You could place mobs directly instead of waiting around for them to spawn. Really helpful for map makers and also for people who like to put 40 cows in one small pen just to hear the chaos. Not that I do that often. This update also added more language support, including pirate speak, which do be hitting different matey. There were also minor world generation tweaks and item changes, nothing game-changing, but it smoothed the experience out. This is also around the time that Notch gave up the game to Mojang, so things get pretty interesting from here on out. Version 1.2.1 introduced jungles, and this is where the world really got more vegetation and atmosphere. Trees were taller, vines hung everywhere, and the terrain had a more wild, overgrown feel. It was cool for exploration, but let's be honest, trying to walk through a jungle is basically you punching leaves for 5 minutes just to move 5 feet. This update also added ocelots, which could be tamed into cats. They helped scare off creepers, which is great, but taming them required the patience of a monk. They would run if you even thought about moving. Cats were worth it though. Cats are always worth it. Jungle temples also appeared here. And look, I really want to know who designed these. The traps are fine, the loot is okay, but the whole place just feels like a booby-trap disappointment. I will raid one if I pass by, but I'm not happy about it. Other additions included iron golems spawning naturally in villages and some changes to height generation, so the world felt more varied. It gave Minecraft a more natural shape overall. Version 1.3.1 made a pretty big behind-the-scenes change. Single-player and multiplayer were merged, meaning when you play single-player, the game is actually running a local server. For most players, this didn't feel different, but it made the game more stable and made things like LAN worlds possible. This update also added desert temples. These were a big step for exploration. The loot was great early game, but the TNT trap at the bottom caught a lot of players the first time. If you ever opened that chest without noticing the pressure plate, you learned very quickly how fast your inventory can stop existing. Books and enchanting got adjusted, and we also got emeralds and villager trading. This is where villagers finally became just slightly more useful than decorative furniture, hooray. It was the early foundation for what would later become my professionally managed villager work facility, which is not a prison, legally speaking. Overall, 1.3.1 made Minecraft more interactive and more rewarding to explore. The world had more reasons to wander, loot, and start thinking about gearing up instead of just building a dirt house and calling it a day. The pretty scary update is when Minecraft started to introduce fun names for all their updates. This update added the witches, to this day one of the best enemies in the whole game. Yeah, Mojang has gotten lazy. Witches were one of the first mobs designed to fight you with actual strategy. Instead of just running at you, they'd throw potions, heal themselves, slow you down, poison you. This update also introduced the Wither, Minecraft's second boss. Summoning it required soul sand and wither skeleton skulls, and the fight was rough, especially early game. Well, let's be real, in Java, it's kind of a cakewalk, but if you're in Bedrock, then good luck, cause you're probably not going to make it. We also got anvils, beacons, carrots, potatoes, and item frames. These gave players a lot more control over gear progression and base organization. Food variety improved, farming expanded. The game felt more challenging while also gaining some new ways to progress. The redstone update was a big deal for anyone who touches redstone. No, not like that goodness. The entire redstone system was rewritten to be more consistent, so contraptions worked the same way every time instead of breaking whenever you looked at them wrong. The update added redstone comparators, hopper systems, droppers, and daylight sensors. This meant you could move items automatically, detect signal strengths, and time things more reliably. Storage systems, auto farms, smelters, sorting setups, all that became possible or at least way easier because of this update. It also added the redstone block, which made powering machines way simpler. Before that, getting power where you needed it felt like rewiring a toaster using spaghetti. I know not everyone plays with redstone, and that's fine. Some of us enjoy building factories that produce 10,000 potatoes an hour for no real reason. Some of us also enjoy locking villagers underground to trade those potatoes back for emeralds. It's all part of the experience. The horse update was, well, an update. It introduced, you guessed it, horses. These guys were actually one of the best ways to travel back then, if you can believe it. Before this, you just had to walk everywhere. Taming them took a little patience, but once you had a good one, exploring was a lot easier. Though never try to take one of these guys over a puddle of water, cause yeah, it won't work. This update also added donkeys and mules, which could carry chests. They were slower, but being able to bring storage with you on long trips was actually useful. We also got leads and hay bales, making animal keeping way easier. Overall, this update was pretty small, but at least it wasn't hurting anything. Which I can't say for all the updates coming up. The update that changed the world, well, did kinda change the world, big surprise. Before this update, a lot of the world felt kind of similar. After 1.7, biomes become way more varied and had distinct shapes and colors. This is where savannas, mesas, roofed forests, mega taiga, ice spikes, and a bunch more showed up. We also got new flowers and new wood types, which was a big deal for builders. Acacia showed up here, which... yeah, let's not even go there. Rivers and coastlines were smooth too, so the terrain looked more natural. The world just felt more believable overall. The bountiful update was when I was first introduced to Minecraft, and it was a pretty good one to get started with, unlike the update that came after, but we will get to that later. This update added ocean monuments and guardians, which finally gave the ocean something other than just water. But in the typical Mojang fashion, the loot in this place is barely worth grabbing. Rabbits were also added, which, I mean, are just cute. There was also armor stands, which is a major feature. Not only can you use it to show off your drip, but they are used in so many redstone contraptions and traps, it's a lot. And to add to that, slime blocks showed up, which are practically gold for redstone builders. I mean, these geniuses started creating machines that look like NASA should be involved. We also got a bunch of performance improvements and villager trading upgrades, making villagers a lot more valuable. Which, for some of us, meant it was time to expand the trade hall. Voluntarily. Obviously. The combat update. Yeah, not much needs to be said about this one, other than it sucks. Okay, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration. Basically, this is the update that added attack cooldowns, which instantly split the player base into two groups, the people who adapted and the people who are still complaining to this day. Instead of just spam clicking, you now had to time your hits, which made combat slower and more deliberate. Some people liked the strategy. A lot of people did not. Shields were added, which was actually a good change. They made blocking meaningful and gave players real protection, especially against skeletons who now have the accuracy of trained Navy snipers. But shields also meant that sword blocking was removed, which added to the frustration a lot of older players felt. This update also changed the end in a big way. End cities and end ships were added, along with elytra. And elytra is one of the best items in the entire game. It completely redefined exploration and movement.